This is every Dead by Daylight killer ranked by fun, in my opinion. Also, if it sounds like I'm sick, it's because I am. There are currently 34 killers in the game. The least fun killer in the game, in my opinion, is, I think we all saw this coming, the Skull Merchant. This is pretty obvious for a few reasons. She can hold 3 gens that are just really hard to break, and she's not fun to go against when you're a solo queue survivor, which is typically what I do because I don't have friends. Overall, to play as, you know you're not really having fun because the survivors are definitely not having fun. Every time I play Skull Merchant, typically I get DCs or people that just kill themselves and hook because they just don't like Skull Merchant. Even with the rework, she still feels really bad to play as and still play against. If anything, she's more annoying because now she just gives you the deep wound effect. Next on the list is the Knight, for, again, obvious reasons. The Knight feels extremely clunky with his power. I think it's so unfair that the little knights that chase you just go through walls and pallets because it's just like, what do you do? Like, you can pre-drop a pallet, but if the knight is also chasing you, you're basically guaranteed to get smacked no matter what. He is also extremely good at holding 3 gens. If he makes sure that there are 3 gens, all he has to do is put a guard down that patrols the 3 gens back and forth, and there's not much the survivors can do. To play as the knight is okay. It's not that great. Like, you basically are at a loop, and you can just put a guard down, and then move on to the next loop, because the survivor either runs away or starts getting chased by the guard. So, there's not a lot with the knight. He's kind of just bad. The twins. The twins feel extremely clunky. Like, Victor alone feels very buggy all the time. Also, the twins heavily incentivize slugging, which is just, like, not good for gameplay. Like, no one likes to be left on the ground for 4 minutes. There are some okay counters. Like, it does feel good when you juke a Victor and then you kick him in the face, but it's kinda a 50-50 scenario because most twins that I've gone against are either really bad or they're just P100 twins and they know exactly what they're doing and you just don't get to play the game. Playing as the twins is kind of fun. Like, yeah, you get to, like, use Victor and then you, like, grab onto someone, I guess, but I don't know. It's not that fun because you basically just leave the survivors on the ground. If the survivor is injured, you just leave the survivor on the ground if you down them as Victor, and then you try to go find another survivor, you get attached to them, and then you go pick up the survivor and hook them. It's kind of a weird thing with twins. It's not that fun, really, but hopefully the reworked twins that are coming will be really good and really fun. The Cenobite, or the Cenobite? Something. Pinhead feels really bad to play against. Like, it is just miserable when you have to get the chains off and try to vault a pallet, especially if you're a console player like me. It's not fun when it's the same button and then you accidentally misclick and then you vault the pallet. And when you're in solo queue, no one goes for the box, so evidently, eventually, you're just gonna get the chain haunt event happening. Playing as Pinhead is a little bit more fun. It is fun to use your chains in chase and then smack people. And then if you find the box, it's basically, like, really fun for the next, you know, however long that lasts. Overall, Pinhead isn't that bad to play as, but it's just really bad to play against. The Ringu. She has so much pressure that it is really hard to play against. Basically, the best strat you can do is to grab a tape as a survivor and pray you don't get smacked. Otherwise, she's just gonna spam her teleport and eventually you're gonna get moried. I already made a YouTube short about this a little while ago explaining why she felt really strong in the game right now. Because playing as the Ringu, it is extremely easy to get kills. Literally, you don't have to do anything. If you don't want to chase, you don't have to. All you have to do is just teleport to TVs. Just spam teleport. And with some add-ons, like the iridescent tape, it is extremely hard for survivors to get rid of the tape on some maps. So, basically, it is just not fun to play against. She can be super fun to play as, you know, because she just gets kills, but that's about it. The Dredge. I find the Dredge to be kind of annoying to play against. The darkness thing that happens is really obnoxious, especially because you can't see. But, I mean, it is okay because you still can hear the Dredge. Like, it's not that bad. I did find playing as the Dredge pretty fun. He's an anti-loop killer, which I know is not that much fun playing as Survivor, but he's pretty fun to play as. I mean, you teleport to lockers, you kind of jump scare the survivors. He's not super horrible, but he's also not that great. The Legion. Now, this might be an absolute hot take, but I absolutely despise going against Legions. I hate the fact that he just runs around the map and smacks you, and then now you have to mend, and then you're just injured all game. And it's even worse when he runs all anti-slowdown heal perks. It is just, it's so bad. Like, healing already because they made it longer, and then it's just even longer if, you know, you're playing against the Legion, which is just not fun. Playing as the Legion isn't that bad. Like, if you get your power off, you can eventually get it down if you smack 4 survivors, which is pretty nice. And he does counter, like, off the record and dead hard, which is pretty nice. And I do like the fact that I think his mixtape add-ons changed the way of his chase theme, which is pretty cool. So, and his cosmetics are really nice. But other than that, Legion is not that great. The Trickster. This is also probably a hot take, but playing against the Trickster is not super fun. Like, obviously, like, if you're in a dead zone, you're basically dead. You're just gonna get knifed and then smacked. But the recent changes with Trickster make him really fun to play as because he has no recoil. So for a console player, it's pretty nice to just land your shots. But it's also kind of clunky because I wasn't used to the fact that he doesn't have recoil anymore. So I was actually doing worse than I was when he had recoil. But I find Trickster to be very fun to play as. Playing against can be fun. Like, if you juke his knives and maybe is not super great, then you might have a good time and a good chase. Obviously, if you're in a dead zone, you're basically dead. The Spirit. The Spirit is a scenario where if you are injured, you are almost guaranteed to be just dead. Like, if it's a good Spirit, she's gonna find you, and you're so loud when you're injured that there's just no way you can really escape, like when she's phasing. Now, there is some counterplay. Like, it is kind of cool to do the mind games where, like, maybe she's faking her phase, and then you kind of, like, do some tricky stuff in chase to, like, get away, which is pretty awesome. Playing as Spirit is kind of fun. Like, it's kind of fun to track the survivors when you're in your phase and smack them, and then do the mind games where, like, maybe you're faking your phase and then you get a hit, which is kind of fun. But there are obviously scenarios where, yeah, if you're injured as a survivor, you just don't really stand a chance anymore. The Trapper. Now, you're probably wondering why he's so high on this list. Playing against Trapper is not really that fun. Like, you're always kind of paranoid. Like, you don't want to run through grass. You know, you can't really do much because you don't know if a loop is trapped or not. But playing as Trapper, I find to be a little satisfying. Like, it's satisfying when you set up your traps and then get them in a trap after you did your strategic planning, trapping one side of the map. And there is some, like, you can outplay survivors with, like, traps. Like, you can run some add-ons where, like, you place the bear traps extra fast and fake it and then smack the survivors. So I do find playing as Trapper pretty fun, even though he's the weakest killer in the game. The Doctor. I find playing against the Doctor a little weird because you kind of have to plan what you're gonna do. Like, you either pre-drop the pallet or run away, and it's kind of like those weird 50-50 mind games, which I don't mind. There can be fun, but if you mess up once and he shocks you, you're gonna get smacked. So you have to play very, very smart against Doctors. Otherwise, you're just gonna go down. Playing as the Doctor is kind of fun too because you have to actually plan and predict when and what the survivor is gonna do. Like, you have to plan, are they gonna vault the pallet? And make sure you time your shocks correctly so you can smack them. So playing as the Doctors is pretty fun, and playing against the Doctor is alright. It's not that great, but it's okay. The Hag. Playing against the Hag is kind of tricky because I don't really know exactly what to do. Like, in chase, she might place a trap down, and then you kind of have a scenario where you can trigger the trap, and either she's going to teleport to it, or she won't, and try to bait you, which is a kind of cool, tricky mind game, which I enjoy. But then there's also scenarios where it's like, I just don't know exactly what to do either. Like, it could just be a normal Hag on mid-witch, which is absolutely miserable. She's just super good with running silent traps, and then it's kind of just like, you just don't know what to do because you don't know when the traps get triggered. So unless you're really good at looking at the ground the whole game and finding the traps, then you're kind of just screwed. Playing as the Hag is more of a skill issue. Like, I don't really know what to do playing as the Hag. Like, I guess I play Hag like Trapper, where I just trap one side of the map, and then hopefully the survivors will just trigger them and I smack them. But I don't really know any strategic plays to play as the Hag besides, like, placing a trap at a loop when a survivor's there and then doing that mind game. But other than that, I can't really say much. The shape. Myers feels really bad to play against. Like, it's kind of a stupid scenario where either you're going to be the one at the end of tier 3 or someone else's, and there's no countering it. It's gonna happen eventually, and there's just nothing you can do about it. Later on, when I talk about Ghostface, it's very similar in the aspect of, like, you can snap him out, but Myers, you can't do anything, right? So, like, either you let him stalk you, and then you screw over your teammates, or your teammates get stalked, and then you're at the end of the tier 3, which is not that fun. Playing as Myers, I did find this really funny build, which is, like, if you use tier 3 and then use Q, it's kind of funny to do, like, extremely big lunges in tier 3, and it's kind of fun to just, like, stalk the survivors in the background, because, like, you know, eventually they don't see it, and then they get super scared when they see you, and he has absolutely busted add-ons. But other than that, Myers is kind of weird, and he's not super fun to play against, like, at all, but playing as him can be kind of funny, and there can be some really good jump scare moments, but that's about it. Singularity. Larry feels really weird to play against. Like, the only counter he has is the EMPs, and they're not even that strong. Like, they nerfed the EMPs since the PTB, which is good, but now it also kind of feels like they're super weak. Like, you can disable a camera and get rid of the stuff on your back, but that's, like, about it. In Chase, he's also kind of, like, weird to counter because he just either chases you or he goes into your camera and then you have to, like, kind of duck and dive, and then you're either gonna get, like, smacked or you're gonna get duped. Playing as Singularity is a skill issue. Like, I'm not that great as him, so, like, I can't really say too much, but I do find the moments in Chase kind of fun. Like, you can slipstream them and then use your power and teleport to them, and if you use Q on Larry, it's kind of fun because you can, like, lunge super far into the pallet. So then if they throw it down, you get stunned and it breaks the pallet. So that's kind of fun. And the EMPs, again, do not feel super strong when you play as Larry. So it's kind of just like they don't really have a big counter. Everyone's always kind of like slipstreamed. Freddy does not feel bad or good to play against. Like, he's just a normal killer, and the only time he's kind of, like, annoying is, like, when there's a puddle of blood and you step in it and now you're extremely slow. But, like, otherwise, there's nothing really happening. He's just, like, a basic killer, and he's not really doing much. Playing as Freddy's kind of cool. Like, if you have barbecue and you can teleport to, like, generators, and if you run fake pallets, you can kind of, like, trick the survivors into thinking it's like, oh, it's a usable pallet, and then they throw it down in your face. But he's just a normal killer, so it's very hard for me to put him on the list somewhere. Like, he's just a normal killer, and there's nothing really special happening. The pig. There are some really weird mind games you can do against the pig. Like, she can go into her undetectable state, and then you kind of have, like, a choice where either you stay at the pallet and then try to guess which direction she's gonna go when she dashes at you, or you run away. And it's kind of an interesting mind game, but obviously it is kind of annoying when you get a bear trap on your head and then your teammates pop the gen, and then now you have to go around like a headless chicken and try to find the right box. Playing as the pig is almost useless. Like, her power feels almost useless. Like, crouching around the map doesn't feel that great. Like, you're just gonna be statistically faster if you just actually walk. And in Chase, if you actually get your power off by mind gaming the pallet, I mean, that's good, but, like, it feels like it never really happens that often. Obviously, her whole thing is to slow the gens being popped by putting bear traps on the survivors' heads, and it feels fine, but it can also be kind of scummy when it's just like you run add-ons that just make it really hard for the bear trap to get off. Otherwise, Pig isn't that crazy, and she's kind of fun to play as, but that's about it. The Plague. Plague is okay to play against. Like, basically the way you counter her is just by not cleansing, but it's kind of difficult when you're solo queue because your teammates may cleanse, and then it's gonna screw you over, because evidently you're just gonna get sick no matter what. So the best thing to do is just to not cleanse. Playing as the Plague is pretty fun. Like, it's pretty fun to, like, snipe people with your power just by, like, puking absolutely everywhere. And she obviously has a lot of slowdown by, like, putting, like, the survivors have a choice, right? So you either touch the gen that's been puked on, or, like, they don't. So then they're being put into a very interesting scenario. So Plague feels pretty fun to play as and play against. The Clown. I don't know what it is about the Clown, but he feels really fun to play as. Like, he's the most basic thing you can get. You just throw a gas bottle at a loop, and then it slows the survivors down, you get a hit, which can be extremely annoying as a survivor. Like, playing against the clown is not fun. You either just run away from the loop, and then you get slowed down by a bottle, or you just have to, like, not greet pallets, and you have to just pre-drop every pallet, because he's just gonna throw a gas bottle down. But playing as the clown is just so much fun. I don't know what it is, like, it just feels so satisfying to get long shots with his bottles. And I don't know, maybe it's something about the knife animation. It just feels really nice to play as the clown. Billy. Like, I know everyone likes to play against a Billy as a survivor. I don't know what it is. Like, it's not super, like, bad or great at the same time. It's just like, oh, it's a Billy. Okay. And I don't know. I guess I don't mind it. It's still kind of fun. Like, he's not that, he's still pretty fun to counter. Try to see what's going to happen at a loop. Playing as the Billy is an absolute skill issue. I am just absolutely horrible as Billy, but I do know that there are Billy players out there who are absolutely cracked with this killer that have so much fun with him, and unfortunately I'm just not one of those people, so I can't really say much about playing as Billy. The nurse feels either really bad to play against or like really fun, and I know some people really like to go against a nurse, but it's so 50-50. You either get a nurse that downs everybody in 10 seconds and you don't even get to play the game, or you get a nurse that's not as good and you can run them for so long. There are some interesting mind games you can do against the nurse, but again, it still kind of feels really bad because sometimes you can't really do much against a nurse and it's just like game over. Like, she's on a whole nother level of the game. Playing as the nurse is partially a skill issue. Like, I'm not that good with the nurse, and I know she can be super fun once you learn her. Like, you can just get kills and it's really fun to do mind games with her, but I'm just not that good with the nurse. So she's kind of fun to play against, and I know she can be really fun to play as. Wraith. Playing against the Wraith is kind of like a normal killer. Like, there's not a bunch of crazy stuff you do, like you kind of just, you know, run around pallets. There is a really interesting mind game you can do against the Wraith, where basically, if he's trying to vault a window after you vaulted it, you can repeatedly vault back to the window and he can't do anything about it unless he uncloaks, which is a cool mind game. But playing as the Wraith is super fun. It is really fun to jump scare survivors and run Silent Bell add-on, and it's also really funny when you sandbag a window or a pallet so they can't get around you. But that's about it. Pyramid Head. He feels really interesting to play against because you kind of have to think about what he's doing. Like, you have to think, oh, well, is he gonna predict that I'm gonna like vault the pallet and then he'll shoot his 9-inch long knife at you? He's really fun to do mind games against, and he does add a whole other system to the game that aren't hooks, which is really nice. But he has a serious issue where he can kind of tunnel survivors out really fast, and he's really good at camping, because even with the new camping system, all he has to do is wait just far enough away, and as soon as he sees the survivor going for it, he just puts his knife in the ground and shoots his thing, and he's gonna injure the one survivor and then just down them. And there's not much the survivors can do against that. Playing as Pyramid Head is pretty fun to try to guess what the survivors are gonna do, so then you can get your power off, is really nice. And he counters off the record, dead hard, decisive strike, which is really nice, which I don't think a lot of people realize, because honestly, people do not use the cages enough. Cages are actually so overpowered, like they just counter all the meta perks. Leatherface. Leatherface is, I don't think, bad or good to play against. He's kind of just like that funny character when you get, I don't know, he's just like a really funny character to see as a survivor, running around the map, making noises. Like, there's not really much happening in Chase yet. You can juke out his chainsaw and make him bump into stuff, but he's still just like that, a funny killer just to get as a survivor. Obviously, it's not fun when he basement camps, but I think he's so iconic for that it makes it okay. Playing as Bubba is, again, more of a funny thing instead of a, oh, this killer's really good, because he's not. Obviously, there's some skill with like not trying to bump into walls, trying to use your chainsaw, and it's really easy to secure kills by obviously just going inside the basement and running a basement build, or just camping the hook in general, because even with the anti-camp, you can catch up to the survivor after you use your chainsaw. But Bubba is just a funny character just to play as and play against. The Ghostface. I find playing against Ghostface extremely fun. It's always kind of like an unnerving thing. Like, you always have to be aware of your surroundings and, you know, make sure you're not just gonna get pulled off the generator or stalked. And he's still a pretty basic killer, so he doesn't have extremely much stuff happening, like in chase, and the fact that he can just teabag is just really funny. Playing as Ghostface is kind of weird because you can stalk survivors from so far away, but the survivors only have a certain amount of distance that they can snap you out, which is kind of unfair. But sneaking around the map is like, it feels like a better version of Pig, because his crouching feels like faster and it feels more reliable to use. So Ghostface feels really good to play as and against. All right, now these are the top 10 funnest killers in my opinion to go against. The Deathslinger. Deathslinger is so much fun to go against because it is really awesome in chase, trying to dodge his spear gun and making sure you don't make the wrong mistake by like vaulting a window and juking it out and faking the window, so then he accidentally shoots. He has some very good mind games, which is really nice. Playing as Deathslinger was more fun back then because of his instant aim, but he still feels extremely amazing to play as. Just being able to snipe people from super far away, he just feels like he's so much fun to play still. Chucky. Chucky coming out recently, I don't feel like people exactly know his entire counterplay or fully how to play as, but going against Chucky, there's only one core issue I had with him, which is he just feels extremely quiet. Like when he goes into his hidey hole mode, it just feels like you can't hear him at all. Like, I can't hear anything except for the little pitter-patters and the footsteps that aren't even actually Chucky. But his chase power is super nice. It's very similar to like an Oni dash or like a Wesker dash, trying to dodge it, and it feels really fun to play against. And Any Means Necessary is an actual counter to Chucky. So if you just bring Any Means and vault a pallet and use Any Means, he can't slip underneath the pallet, which is really fun. Playing as Chucky feels really fun because there are some add-ons. When you slip underneath a pallet in hidey hole mode, you can see the survivor's aura, and it just helps so much in chase, and it really like throws off the survivors. And his dash is obviously just really fun, and having a third-person killer is just extremely cool. Like, this is the first time Behavior's done anything like this, which is really cool. And the voice lines and gestures he does in chase are just really funny. Nemesis. He's kind of fun to play against, only because there can be instances where, like, it just feels really unfair. Because sometimes he can hit you over things that you think he shouldn't be able to hit you over, but then you get hit, and then it's like, oh. But I still find playing against Nemesis pretty fun, like juking out his whip. And adding the zombies is just like a whole other challenge to try to survive from. Like, you could have a zombie and Nemesis chasing you, and now you kind of have to play really smart because otherwise you're going to get killed. Playing as Nemesis is extremely fun. Once you learn what you can hit over and what you can't, you can start really like using Nemesis in a really interesting way and getting hits that you think you shouldn't be getting. And when you get a down or get a smack with your zombie, you just feel so accomplished and so proud of your zombies. It's really fun. Demogorgon. Playing against a demo is so much fun. I don't exactly know what it is that makes him super fun. Like, in chase, he just feels really fun to juke out, I guess. Juking out his shred attack is really fun, but otherwise, Demo's really just a basic killer, but he's just super fun to play against. Playing as Demo is like a whole nother story. I play Demo, I think, in a very different way because I main Demo, because I don't run any gen slowdowns or anything. I normally just run a pallet eat build and a chase heavy build. So typically I do get 4K'd a lot and I don't get that many kills. But it is extremely fun to use your shred and use save the best for last on Demo. And also just running Spirit Fury and Hubris is like so funny when you get stunned and then you just kill them. Artist. Now playing against the Artist is kind of not fun because she's heavily anti-loop. Like, she just places a bird down at a pallet or a loop, and then you basically just have to run away from it. And she doesn't have an extreme counter anymore because they removed being able to get rid of birds with flashlights. But Artist is so much fun to play as. Like, I did not play much Artist, and then recently when I did, I had so much fun because running an aura build is so strong, and sniping people with birds from across the map is like the most satisfying thing. And when you get it down from across the map, it just feels so satisfying. She is just a very fun killer to play as. The Xenomorph. Alien is pretty insane. Playing against an alien is kinda not super great. Like, it's still kind of fun, but the only counterplay you have is deterrence, and a lot of survivors just do not set them up. So you're basically always having to deal with Catboy Alien, which is just like like not super fun because you can juke out the tail, but they could also just fake it and then smack you. Playing as Alien is so ungodly fun because once you learn how the tail works, it is insane. Some of the hits you can get. It is just so much fun to play as him. And he adds the tunnel system, which is just absolutely crazy. And even the counterplay from the turrets aren't even that bad because if you know where they are, as soon as you come out of a tunnel, you just snipe it with your tail and then it's not even an issue anymore. The Oni. Oni is pretty fun to play against. When he goes into demon form, it becomes like an absolute panic for like the next minute because you don't want to get instant down and you don't know where he's coming from. When you're in chase with him, when he has that activated, it is like so crazy and so panicky. But it feels so good when you juke out a lunge from it or a dash. Obviously, the only annoying part about Oni is if people run anti-heal perks and then you just can't heal and then there's just blood everywhere because then he always has his power. But he still feels so fun to play against. Playing as Oni is so fun to run across the map and snipe people. It just feels like a better version of Billy because you can't run into objects. You just kind of slide against them, which makes it so much easier and so much fun to play as Oni. And if you run Tinkerers, you will absolutely scare the survivors. All right, the third most enjoyable killer to play as and play against is Wesker. Wesker is so much fun to play against, trying to dodge his dash. And for a time, it was so annoying to get Weskers, not because he was terrible to go against, but because there was just so many, because that's how fun he was to play as and play against. The only annoying thing about Wesker is when you get Ouroboros and you get that 7% slowdown, then you're basically just dead. But otherwise, in chase, he is just so much fun to go against. Playing as Wesker is just as much fun. Using your dash to throw people and get them covered in Ouroboros is so fun, and trying to use mind games to like vault the pallet and catch the survivors off guard to catch up to them is just so much fun to play as. It's just amazing. The second most enjoyable killer in the game is Huntress. I find playing against a Huntress so incredibly fun to try dodging hatchets, and you have a interesting time at palace because either you greed the pallet and she doesn't wind up and then you get smacked, or you can greed the pallet and she winds up and then you gain more distance. It is extremely fun for mind games to play against Huntress. It's just so much fun. Playing as Huntress is so amazing to get hatchet plays off. There are just some people out there that can just throw hatchets across the map and just hit people, and it's so amazing to get like across the map snipes. And even still, just getting a down or a hit with your hatchet from a very good distance is so satisfying. And mind gaming pallets is also so fun. Trying to guess what the survivor's gonna do, either by throwing the pallet or greeting it, is just so amazing to play as and play against. All right, this might be the biggest hot take of the whole video, but I think the most enjoyable killer in the entire game is the Blight. Now, Blight, I know, has absolutely broken add-ons, but I find it so fun to play against a Blight. Trying to juke him out is just so satisfying for gameplay. Like, most of the time, I even get demolished by a Blight, but I just don't care because I just have so much fun playing against a Blight. Playing as the Blight is a partial skill issue. I'm not that great with him, but it is still so amazing to play as Blight and be able to go across the map extremely fast and then smack survivors. It is just a really amazing gameplay, and maybe when the add-on change comes into the game, maybe he'll feel even better to play as. Alright, well, this has been my most fun killer tier list video, and I feel like I've been partially biased on some and not as much on others, so I'm very curious to see what other people will think, and that's the video.